The breaking point. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the holographic display, her heart pounding as she processed what the data revealed. The quantum signatures were undeniable. Earth's technological development hadn't just been slow, it had been actively suppressed. For centuries, an invisible field had been dampening certain types of quantum interactions, subtly limiting humanity's scientific progress. Director Matthews needs to see this immediately, she whispered to herself, quickly encrypting the findings. The discovery wasn't just revolutionary, it was terrifying. Every failed experiment, every inexplicable setback in quantum computing and faster-than-light travel research, it hadn't been human error, it had been deliberate interference. The Global Science Initiative's headquarters buzzed with its usual activity as Sarah rushed through its corridors. Scientists from every nation worked here, united in humanity's quest to reach the stars. If only they knew how their efforts had been secretly sabotaged all along. Director James Matthews was already in a meeting when Sarah burst into his office, but one look at her face made him excuse himself from his virtual conference. "Dr. Chen, what's wrong?" "We're being contained," Sarah said, projecting her findings onto the office's main display. "Look at these quantum signature patterns. They're artificial, Director. Someone out there doesn't want us reaching the stars." Matthews studied the data, his weathered face growing darker with each passing moment. "How long?" "Based on historical data, at least 300 years. The field's signature matches traces we found in ancient artifacts." "Sir, this explains everything. The quantum barrier problem, the fusion efficiency gap, all of it." The director sank into his chair, running a hand through his gray hair. "Does anyone else know?" "Just my core team, and I've sworn them to secrecy. But sir, there's more." Sarah pulled up another dataset. "We found a way to break through it." That got Matthew's attention. "How?" "The field has a resonance frequency. If we can generate a counterwave using our quantum harmonics array, we might be able to create a temporary window of unrestricted development, a chance to break free. And if whoever placed this field notices." Sarah met his eyes. "Then we'll finally know who's been keeping us caged." The next 48 hours were a blur of activity. Matthews activated emergency protocols, bringing in key scientists and military personnel from around the globe. In a secured bunker beneath the facility, Sarah briefed the hastily assembled group. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "humanity has been living in a cage. Today we're going to break out." Among those present was Commander David Okonjo of the United Earth Defense Force, his dark eyes intense as he absorbed the implications. "How long do we have once we start?" "Hours, maybe days before they notice," Sarah replied. "We'll need to make them count." "Then we'll need a diversion," said Dr. Yuki Tanaka, head of the Advanced Propulsion Laboratory. "Something to keep their attention while we work on the real breakthrough." Matthews nodded. "Agreed. We'll announce a major breakthrough in conventional fusion technology. Should give us the cover we need." The plan came together quickly. While the world's attention focused on a highly publicized fusion announcement, Sarah and her team worked frantically in their quantum labs. The counterwave generator took shape, a massive array of crystalline structures and superconducting coils that hummed with potential. "Field harmonics stabilizing," Sarah announced, her voice tense as they initiated the first test. "Counterwave generation in 3, 2, 1. The air itself seemed to shimmer as the device activated. For a moment, nothing happened. Then alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Multiple quantum breakthroughs occurring simultaneously. Dr. Tanaka shouted, staring at his readings in disbelief. "It's like a dam breaking." Sarah watched in awe as years of failed experiments suddenly yielded results. Quantum equations resolved themselves. Propulsion theories fell into place. It was as if humanity's collective scientific knowledge had been a puzzle with missing pieces, and now those pieces were flooding back. But their triumph was short-lived. Massive energy signature detected in high orbit, Commander Okonjo announced, rushing into the lab. multiple objects decelerating from FTL speeds. They're here. Sarah exchanged looks with Matthews. This was it, the moment of first contact, forced by humanity's refusal to remain confined. Send the signal, Matthews ordered. Activate every prototype we've managed to build in the last 48 hours, and get me a direct line to the UN Security Council. As the world above them erupted into chaos, Sarah couldn't help but feel a fierce pride. Humanity had been caged, but they'd found the lock. Now it was time to see what their jailers looked like, and show them exactly why they'd felt the need to contain humanity in the first place. Outside, the sky filled with ships of impossible designs, their hulls reflecting the sun like liquid metal. Humanity's great escape had begun, and with it, a new chapter in Earth's history. The cage door was open, and there would be no going back. Commander Okonjo's voice cut through the tension. First wave of orbital defenses online. At least we won't be totally defenseless when they come down to talk. They won't be talking, Matthews said grimly. Not at first. But they'll learn that humanity doesn't take kindly to being imprisoned. Dr. Chen, how long until the first prototype ships are ready? Sarah checked her tablet. 2 hours. Maybe less, now that the suppression field is down. Everything we built in secret is suddenly working at full capacity. Then let's give our visitors something to think about, Matthews said, his voice hard with determination. It's time to show the galaxy why they were so afraid of us in the first place. Hidden strengths. The alien ships hung in Earth's orbit like suspended daggers, their presence a silent threat that every human on the planet could feel. In the 2 hours since their arrival, global communications had been flooded with demands for humanity to stand down and accept protective quarantine. Inside the Quantum Lab's command center, Dr. Sarah Chen watched as the first transmissions from the alien fleet were decoded. The beings called themselves the Galactic Council, and their message was clear. Humanity was too dangerous to be allowed free rein among the stars. They're scanning us, Commander Okonjo reported, his eyes fixed on the defense grid displays, trying to map our capabilities. But they're missing something. Director Matthews leaned forward. What do you mean? Their scan patterns. They're looking for specific energy signatures, quantum drives, antimatter weapons, standard galactic tech. They're not seeing our more unconventional approaches. Sarah smiled for the first time in hours. The aliens had suppressed humanity's development in certain technological directions, but in doing so, they'd forced humanity to develop along paths they hadn't anticipated. While the galaxy had standardized on quantum tech, humanity had pushed the boundaries of digital computing, electromagnetic warfare, and chemical propulsion far beyond what the Concordat considered relevant. Launch the drones, Matthews ordered. All of them. Across the globe, hidden silos opened. Thousands of small, seemingly primitive drones took to the sky. To the alien scanners, they would appear almost laughably simple. No quantum drives, no exotic weapons, just basic electronics and chemical engines. They're not even bothering to shoot them down, Dr. Tanaka observed, watching the swarm approach the alien fleet. They don't consider them a threat. That was their first mistake. The drones carried no weapons, but they didn't need to. Each one was equipped with the most sophisticated electronic warfare systems humanity had developed over decades of terrestrial conflict. As they approached the alien ships, they began broadcasting across all frequencies, probing for vulnerabilities. Hit them with everything, Sarah urged. Every virus, every hack, every digital attack we've ever conceived. The alien ship shields were impenetrable to conventional weapons, but they'd never faced anything like this. Their quantum computers, so advanced in raw processing power, proved surprisingly vulnerable to the chaotic, brute force attacks of Earth's binary systems. Alarms blared as the first alien vessel lost power, its shields flickering and dying. Others followed, their sophisticated systems overwhelmed by attack patterns they'd never been programmed to defend against. Second wave ready, Commander Okonjo announced. launching kinetic strike platforms. More silos opened, releasing what appeared to be simple missiles. But these were humanity's ace in the hole, magnetically accelerated projectiles designed to strike with the force of small nuclear weapons without any of the radiation. The aliens' threat assessment systems, calibrated to detect energy weapons and antimatter warheads, barely registered them as threats until it was too late. The first impacts sent alien ships spinning out of formation. Their armor, designed to disperse energy weapons, crumpled under the sheer kinetic force of the impacts. "They're retreating to higher orbit," Sarah reported, watching the tactical display. Regrouping. A new transmission cut through their communications. "This is impossible. Your species was contained. Your development was controlled." Director Matthews took the microphone himself. "You controlled our development along the paths you understood. But humans don't follow paths. We make our own." The response came in multiple alien voices, overlapping in confusion and anger. "Your weapons are primitive. Your technology is crude. You cannot hope to." Their transmission cut off as another wave of electronic warfare drones breached their defenses. "They still don't understand," Dr. Tanaka said, shaking his head. "They think technology only advances in one direction." Sarah watched as more alien ships retreated, their supposedly superior systems compromised by attacks they'd never conceived of. They forgot the most dangerous thing about humanity. We adapt. We find ways around obstacles. When you block one path, we forge another. Multiple quantum signatures detected, Commander Okonjo announced suddenly. "More ships incoming, much bigger ones." Director Matthews straightened his jacket. "Then it's time for Phase 2. Dr. Chen, are the prototype ships ready?" Sarah checked her tablet, where data streamed in from facilities around the globe. In the hours since the suppression field had fallen, humanity's secret projects had undergone explosive development. Ships that had been theoretical suddenly worked. Weapons that had been experimental were now operational. "Ready and crewed," she confirmed. "But sir, they're not tested. We're asking our pilots to fly ships that were impossible yesterday." Matthews smiled grimly. "Then they'll be impossible for our friends up there to predict too. Commander Okonjo, give the order. Let's show them what humanity can really do when we're not being held back." As Earth's first true space fleet rose from hidden bases around the globe, Sarah felt a mix of pride and anxiety. The ships were ugly by alien standards, hybrid designs that combined conventional engines with newly functional quantum systems, bristling with both energy weapons and kinetic launchers. They weren't elegant, but they were quintessentially human, adaptable, unpredictable, and far more dangerous than they looked. "All ships reporting ready," Commander Okonjo announced. "Awaiting your order." Director Matthews took a deep breath. "Tell them to show our visitors why they were right to be afraid of us, but wrong to try and cage us." The human fleet accelerated toward the incoming alien reinforcements, and Sarah realized they were about to demonstrate another uniquely human trait: the ability to take an enemy's greatest fears and turn them into self-fulfilling prophecies. The Concordat had imprisoned humanity because they feared what we might become. Now they would learn what we had become instead, something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Diplomatic chaos. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Concordat erupted into chaos as the latest battle footage played across its curved displays. The assembled representatives watched in stunned silence as another Concordat battle fleet retreated from Earth orbit, its ships damaged not by superior technology, but by weapons their defenses had been programmed to ignore. First Speaker Vellara, her crystalline form pulsing with agitation, called for order. "We cannot ignore what these recordings show. The containment protocols have failed. More importantly, they have backfired spectacularly." "Failed?" High Commander Zixtal bellowed, his scaled skin flushing dark with anger. "They didn't fail. We failed to maintain them properly. If we had checked more frequently, then we would have noticed their progress sooner." "Yes," Vellara interrupted. But that would not have changed the fundamental miscalculation in our approach. We tried to force them to develop along predictable lines. Instead, we drove them to explore alternatives we never considered. The chamber's holographic displays shifted to show detailed analyses of Earth's defensive systems. The crude but effective combination of digital warfare and kinetic weapons had already cost the Concordat more ships than they had lost in the last 3 centuries combined. Ambassador Lirith of the Meridian Collective, her floating form casting rainbow refractions across the chamber, moved forward. Perhaps we should consider that our ancestors' fears were self-fulfilling. By treating humanity as a threat, we have forced them to become one. They were always a threat. Zix Tall countered. Have you forgotten the simulations? The probability matrices. Every scenario showed them becoming a destabilizing force in the galaxy. Those simulations, a new voice cut in, were based on assumptions that we now know were fundamentally flawed. The chamber turned to face Elder Kavol, one of the oldest members of the Galactic Council. The ancient being's biomechanical form hummed softly as he continued. We assumed they would develop along the same technological paths as every other spacefaring race. Back on Earth, Director Matthews and his team watched the intercepted transmissions of the Concordat's debate with intense interest. The alien suppression field had included communication blockers, but like everything else, humanity had found ways around them that the Concordat never expected. They're fracturing, Sarah observed, watching the alien leaders argue. Some of them are actually defending us. Commander Okonjo nodded. Fear is giving way to curiosity, at least among some of them. The debate in the Concordat chamber grew more heated. Zix Tall and his military faction demanded immediate action, a full-scale invasion to subdue Earth before humanity could expand further. But others, led by Valara and Lirith, argued for diplomatic contact. Look at what they've achieved under active suppression, Lirith argued. Their adaptability, their creativity. These are not traits to be feared, but to be valued. The galaxy stagnates because we all think alike. Humanity thinks differently, and that is precisely what makes them dangerous. Zix Tall roared. Elder Kavol's voice cut through the argument once again. No, old friend. What makes them dangerous is that we gave them reason to see us as enemies. But perhaps it is not too late to change that. The debate raged for hours, but a surprising consensus began to emerge. The Concordat had based its entire approach to humanity on fear of what they might become. Now, faced with what they had actually become, many found themselves fascinated rather than frightened. On Earth, Dr. Tanaka burst into the command center with shocking news. The quantum suppression field. We've finished analyzing it. It wasn't just restricting our development. It was gathering data. What kind of data? Matthews asked. Everything. How we solved problems. How we adapted. How we fought. They weren't just containing us. They were studying us. And I don't think they even realized what they were learning. Sarah's eyes widened as she processed the implications. They were so focused on what we couldn't do, they never noticed what we were becoming instead. The Concordat's debate reached a critical point as Elder Kavol made a final, impassioned speech. For 3 centuries, we have treated humanity as a problem to be contained. Perhaps it is time we considered them as potential partners instead. Their very unpredictability, which we feared, might be exactly what our civilization needs. Back on Earth, a new transmission cut through their communications. First Speaker Valara's crystalline form appeared on their screens. People of Earth, we request a dialogue. Director Matthews looked at his team. Commander Okonjo nodded grimly. Dr. Tanaka smiled slightly. And Sarah remembered all the years of frustrated research, of experiments that should have worked but didn't, of humanity pushing against invisible barriers they hadn't even known existed. Tell them we'll talk, Matthews said finally. But our ships stay deployed, our weapons stay active, and they meet us as equals, not as jailers meeting with their prisoners. And one more thing, Sarah added. Tell them we want to know everything. Every species that voted for our containment, every piece of technology they used to hold us back, every simulation they ran that made them fear us so much. Knowledge for knowledge, Commander Okonjo agreed. They've studied us for centuries. Now it's our turn to learn about them. As the message was sent, Sarah couldn't help but smile at the irony. The Concordat had contained humanity because they feared what we might become. Instead, they had forced us to become something far more interesting, a species that had found entirely new paths to the stars. The galaxy would never be the same, and perhaps that had been the point all along. The human factor. The Singapore Conference Center had been transformed into a hybrid of Earth and alien architecture. Crystalline structures sprouted from marble floors, while holographic displays flickered alongside traditional screens. 1 month after the initial confrontation, representatives from Earth and the Concordat were finally meeting face to face. Dr. Sarah Chen sat at the massive circular table, studying the alien delegates with barely concealed fascination. Next to her, Director Matthews maintained his poker face, while Commander Okonjo kept one hand near his concealed sidearm. Trust was still a distant prospect. Your adaptation rate is unprecedented, First Speaker Valera said, her crystalline form refracting light across the chamber. In the 4 weeks since the suppression field fell, you've integrated quantum technologies with your existing systems in ways we never considered possible. Necessity breeds innovation, Sarah replied. When you can't go through a wall, you find ways around it, under it, or through gaps you didn't notice before. High Commander Zixtal, who had been forced by his faction to attend, shifted uncomfortably. That is precisely what concerns us. Your species seems to have no respect for established technological progression paths. With all due respect, Commander, Dr. Tanaka interjected. Those paths were established by your civilizations, based on your ways of thinking. Humanity was forced to find alternatives because you left us no choice. The debate continued, but something unexpected was happening. The alien delegates, particularly the younger ones, were showing increasing interest in humanity's unconventional solutions, Earth's hybrid technology, combining quantum systems with digital computing, merging energy weapons with kinetic delivery systems, represented entirely new approaches to old problems. Your military vessels, a Meridian engineer named Seiler noted, their floating form rippling with excitement. They're incredibly inefficient by our standards. And yet they're also adaptable in ways ours are not. You can lose half your systems and still fight effectively. Commander Okonjo allowed himself a small smile. When you can't rely on superior technology, you learn to build redundancy and flexibility into everything. Our ships aren't the most advanced, but they're arguably the most resilient. The meeting was interrupted by an urgent message. A border dispute between 2 Concordat species had erupted into open conflict. The aliens began discussing standard peacekeeping protocols, but Matthews cleared his throat. Perhaps, he suggested, you'd be interested in hearing a different approach. What followed was a crash course in human diplomatic and military strategy. While the Concordat had relied on overwhelming technological superiority to maintain peace, humanity had centuries of experience in managing conflicts between parties of roughly equal strength. Asymmetric warfare, guerrilla tactics, mutually assured destruction. Sarah explained. We developed these concepts fighting each other. They work just as well for maintaining peace as they do for waging war. The aliens were simultaneously horrified and fascinated. Humanity's approaches were crude by their standards, but undeniably effective. More importantly, they were different from anything in the Concordat's playbook. Your species, Elder Koval observed, views every obstacle as a challenge to be overcome, every limitation as an opportunity to innovate. It is unsettling, but also invigorating. As the conference continued, more Concordat specialists arrived, eager to study humanity's unique developments. Earth's digital security systems, while primitive compared to quantum encryption, proved remarkably effective against certain types of attacks. Human medicine, developed without access to advanced alien healing technology, had explored biological pathways the Concordat had never considered. But it wasn't just humanity's technical solutions that intrigued them. It was their thought processes, their problem-solving approaches, their ability to look at old problems from new angles. "We believed we were protecting the galaxy by containing you," Lirith admitted during a private session. "Instead, we may have been stagnating it. Our civilization has grown comfortable, predictable. We all think alike because we all developed along the same paths." Sarah spent hours sharing research data with alien scientists, each exchange revealing new insights on both sides. The suppression field had forced humanity to develop in isolation, but that isolation had produced something unique, a civilization that approached problems from completely different angles. "Your containment policy had an unintended effect," Matthews explained to the assembled Concordat leadership. "You forced us to solve problems without access to standard solutions. Every barrier you put up became a catalyst for innovation." The conference was drawing to a close when alarms blared throughout the facility. A rogue faction of the Concordat, led by hardliners who still saw humanity as a threat, had launched an attack on Earth's orbital defenses. But this time, something was different. Before Earth's forces could respond, Concordat ships moved to intercept the attackers. The message was clear: humanity was no longer alone. "Well," Commander Okonjo observed dryly, watching the brief space battle through the conference room's windows, "I suppose that's one way to test our new alliance." As the dust settled, Sarah found herself working alongside alien scientists, combining human ingenuity with Concordat technology in ways neither side had imagined possible. The galaxy was changing, and humanity's unconventional approaches were proving to be not just useful, but vital to its evolution. "We contained you because we feared change," Elder Kavol told her as they watched human and alien engineers working together. "We never realized that change was exactly what we needed." The human factor was spreading through galactic civilization, not through conquest or technological superiority, but through the simple power of thinking differently. The cage that had been meant to contain humanity had instead created something the galaxy desperately needed: a species that could see beyond established limits and find new ways forward. New Dawn. 1 year after humanity's breakout from Earth, the Galactic Concordat's Grand Chamber looked very different. Human delegates now sat among the alien representatives, and the chamber itself had been redesigned with a blend of technologies that would have been unthinkable months ago. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the podium, presenting the findings of the Joint Innovation Initiative to the assembled representatives. Behind her, holographic displays showed the fruits of human-alien collaboration. Ships that combined Concordat quantum drives with human-style redundancy systems, defense platforms that integrated digital and quantum computing, and medical treatments that merged alien technology with human biological research. "The results are undeniable," she concluded, gesturing to the data streams. "When we combine our different approaches, we achieve breakthroughs that neither of our civilizations could have managed alone." First speaker Valera's crystalline form pulsed with approval. "The statistics speak for themselves. Joint research projects have produced more innovations in the past year than the Concordat achieved in the previous decade." But not everyone was convinced. High Commander Zixtal, though somewhat mollified by the results, still harbored concerns. "Progress is one thing," he rumbled, "but stability is another. Humanity's influence has caused massive disruption to established protocols and procedures." "With respect, Commander," Director Matthews responded from his seat, "disruption was inevitable. The galaxy was stagnating under those established protocols. Sometimes you need to shake things up to move forward." The debate was interrupted by urgent news from the frontier sectors. A threat that the Concordat had been monitoring for centuries. A swarm of semi-organic machines that consumed everything in their path had suddenly changed its behavior patterns. Traditional containment methods were failing. "They're adapting," Elder Kavol observed grimly. "Something we thought impossible." Commander Okonjo, now Earth's military liaison to the Concordat, leaned forward. Then perhaps it's time to try something impossible ourselves. What followed was a masterclass in human tactical thinking. While the Concordat had always relied on overwhelming force to contain threats, humanity proposed a different approach. Drawing from Earth's history of asymmetric warfare and ecological management, they developed a strategy that turned the swarm's adaptability against itself. "Don't try to overwhelm them," Sarah explained, pulling up simulation models that merged human and alien computing approaches. "Instead, we introduce controlled chaos into their system. Force them to adapt in ways that make them vulnerable." The combined fleet that departed for the frontier was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Concordat dreadnoughts flew alongside smaller, more agile human vessels. Traditional quantum weapons were complemented by experimental hybrid systems, but the real innovation was in the strategy itself, unpredictable, adaptive, and fundamentally human in its approach to problem-solving. As the fleet engaged the swarm, Dr. Tanaka worked with alien scientists to monitor the results. "Look at how they're responding," he said excitedly. "They can't predict our attack patterns because we're not following any standard protocol. Every time they adapt to one approach, we switch to another." The battle became a testament to the power of combined technologies and philosophies. Human-style electronic warfare, previously dismissed as primitive, proved devastating against the swarm's quantum-based coordination systems. Concordat weapons, guided by human tactical algorithms, struck with unprecedented effectiveness. When the dust settled, the swarm had been not just contained, but effectively neutralized. More importantly, the victory had been achieved with minimal losses, using strategies that would have been impossible for either civilization alone. Back in the Grand Chamber, the success led to a profound shift in the Concordat's fundamental philosophy. Elder Kavol, speaking for the Council of Elders, proposed a radical change. "For too long, we have sought to maintain stability by controlling and containing change," he announced. "We treated humanity as a threat because they represented unpredictability. But we now understand that controlled unpredictability, the ability to think differently and adapt rapidly, is vital for any civilization's survival." The reforms that followed transformed the Galactic Concordat. The organization that had once sought to suppress humanity's development now actively encouraged cultural and technological exchange between species. Earth became a hub for innovation, where alien scientists came to study human problem-solving approaches while sharing their own advanced technologies. Sarah found herself heading a new galactic innovation center, where researchers from dozens of species worked together to explore new possibilities. "The irony," she remarked to Matthews during the center's opening, "is that they contained us because they were afraid we'd change the galaxy. And now they're counting on us to do exactly that. But on our own terms," Matthews added, "and in ways that benefit everyone." Commander Okonjo, overseeing the training of the first joint human-alien military units, had his own perspective. "They thought they were protecting the galaxy from us. Instead, they were preserving us for when the galaxy needed us most." The integration wasn't always smooth. Cultural clashes and misunderstandings were common, and some conservative elements in both human and alien societies resisted the changes. But the momentum was unstoppable. Humanity's emergence had introduced something vital into galactic civilization: the ability to question assumptions, challenge conventions, and imagine new possibilities. "We don't just think outside the box," Sarah explained to a group of alien students. "We question why the box exists in the first place. And sometimes, we find that what we thought was a container was actually a foundation to build something new." As she looked out at the eager faces, human, crystalline, scaled, and forms she still didn't have words for, Sarah realized that the Concordat's greatest fear had come true, but not in the way they had expected. Humanity had indeed changed the galaxy forever, not through conquest or superiority, but by showing that there was always another way, another approach, another solution waiting to be discovered. The cage that had been meant to contain humanity had instead created exactly what the galaxy needed: a species that could help break everyone free from the constraints of conventional thinking. The dawn of this new era wasn't just about humanity's emergence. It was about the galaxy's awakening to new possibilities.